and do that with the review of the addendums and corrections to the agenda. Were there any corrections? If not, then by consensus, can we approve the agenda from November? Sorry, Nico, are you agreeing to approve, or do you have a comment?
Yes, I do have a comment.
Okay.
In terms of an addendum, I had thought originally that item 6.2 was going to be somewhat more than just a virtual information meeting. I do have some opinions that I would like to put out there, not by virtue of necessarily invoking a discussion, but so that my opinions can at least be on the public radar. So whether I do that as a subtext to item 6.2, or whether I am afforded an opportunity to speak to the issue directly toward the end of the meeting, either way will suffice for me. But I would like an opportunity to address some thoughts I have about that particular issue.
Okay, thanks, Nico. Devlin, any comments?
I think it would be best for Nico just to make his comments during the discussion of that item, if there is any.
All right. So is that to your satisfaction, Nico?
Absolutely. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. Okay, so then we can proceed with approving the agenda with the addendum mentioned by Nico by consensus. Thank you very much. Disclosure, the item disclosure of pecuniary interest under the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act. Does anyone have any disclosures you want to declare? I don't see any. Thank you. Then moving on to approval and adoption of the minutes. Sorry, now we're going to approve the minutes from November. And were there any corrections? If not, by consensus, can we approve those minutes? Okay, thanks very much. And so that brings us to the consideration of reports, item 5.1, notice of demolition, 6914 second line, West Garafraxa. And just to refresh your memories, in November, we passed a motion opposing the demolition of that property, pending obtaining some additional research. And so we were able to have that research, and it's been included this evening. And we also have a couple of delegations, I believe, to speak to this request for demolition. And the first delegation, I believe, is Glenn Litchie, if I pronounced his last name correctly. Is Glenn there? Just getting set up. And then after that, we'll hear from Kate Rowley on the Lynes Blacksmith shop. Hi, Glenn. Can you hear me? Devlin, do you want to see if you can help Glenn out, and maybe we can have Kate? Would it be okay if we change the order around so that Kate spoke first?
Yep, I'll send Glenn a quick email and
right.
With some other options that he can use.
Okay. Okay, so I'm going to go to Kate Rowley, I believe. And welcome, Kate. You are representing the Blacksmith shop project from, I believe it's Arthur.
Kenilworth, actually.
Kenilworth, I'm sorry. Oh, that's a big, big mistake.
Be careful.
Yeah. Welcome to the meeting. And yeah, we'd love to, we're very interested in hearing what you have to say. You have about 5 minutes. And then
Great.
maybe if there's any questions, the committee may have some questions for you after. So go ahead.
Great. Thank you very much. Everyone can hear me okay? Yes?
Yep.
Good.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes. Yep. Looks like
No,
everybody's
that's
good. Yep.
Good. I was glad Mariana reached out to me. Since about 2016, to make a very long story short, a full restoration of the Lynes blacksmith shop and home of 2 generations of Lynes blacksmiths has been underway in Kenilworth, Ontario. At that time, the township of Wellington North, in partnership with the Mount Forest Museum and Archives, the Arthur Historical Group, and Wellington County Museum and Archives, made a very proactive decision to accept title to these properties and support a community heritage project. And that project is simply to preserve and reinvigorate the entire Lynes property as a heritage site and and sort of educational destination for generations to come. This began as a remarkably generous donation from the Lynes family themselves, most notably Dr. Frank Lynes, who was the surviving son of our 2nd generation of blacksmith. The house in question that I think you're discussing tonight is the first chapter of the Lynes family's settlement in Canada. Even as part of our heritage project in Wellington North, the property has historical significance as the childhood home of our 1st generation of blacksmith. That is James Lynes. He is the eldest son of John and Margaret Lynes. To me, this means it should be considered as the beginning of the story we are trying to tell in Kenilworth, Ontario. The Lynes family represents thousands of Catholic Irish who would have fled Ireland in the 1840s to escape famine and poverty. They represent how successful many of those families became, all sort of becoming leaders in their pre-Confederation and post-Confederation settlements. The Grand Catholic Church that still stands in Kenilworth was built by men like James Lynes and still stands just 100 meters north of our blacksmith shop. Our project has reached way beyond Wellington North at this stage. The county, Wellington County, is greatly interested and invested in, I think, the success of this restoration. We have even received a great deal of provincial recognition, most notably in 2019, winning an award from the Architectural Conservancy of Ontario for our advocacy for the preservation of the Lynes shop. I think most people who have visited and have become part of this project consider it a very worthwhile endeavor and also very exciting for the entire county. I say this only in that the original Lynes home that you're looking at in West Garafraxa really is part of this same story and could be part of the same advocacy and project. Heritage Center Wellington could really become yet another partner in the vision for an educational and cultural site in Kenilworth, which could simply begin with a visit to the childhood home of our blacksmiths, or, as you may be debating tonight, at least the site of James Lynes' childhood home. That's probably the heart of what I would say tonight to you from the perspective of the project. I cannot speak to the architectural value of the house. I will leave that to people far more qualified than I am, but both historically and contextually, I do think there is a singular kind of value to and a unique place for the original home of the Lynes family.
Yes, thank you very much, Kate. That was a very concise and to the point presentation. And does any of the committee, do any of the committee members have any questions for Kate? Okay, good, thanks. If you care to just stand by, you can listen in, I guess, on the rest of the discussion.
Sure, I'd like to do that.
Okay, thank you. And can we go to Glenn now, Devlin?
Hello?
Hi, Glenn.
Yep, I'm here now.
Hi, Glenn. It's Phil Brown. I'm the chair of Heritage Center Wellington.
Okay.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you. I'm on the phone actually because the Zoom didn't want to work on the computer, so I'm on the phone line.
Right. Okay, great. So we just heard a delegation who was speaking to some of the context and the history of the Lynes family, the folks several generations ago who owned the property you currently own now. And but of course, we want to hear from you. You're the current property owner, and you're the person who brought the motion or the request for demolition. So we'd like to hear from you. And as part of the process of evaluating, I think you already are aware that we look exclusively at the heritage value of the property. But I think we need to also be aware that you have concerns that you'd like to bring to our committee. So welcome to the committee, and you have the floor. So go ahead. We'll give you about 5 minutes, and then allow for some questions.
Sure. Well, thanks for having me. And yeah, I think kind of as far as the condition of the house, we have stated that in our emails. To us, history or no history, it's an old crumbling foundation. There is no fancy woodwork or trim or architectural design in this house to us, or I don't think to anybody else, that dates it to any certain era of time. It looks to us like a house that was built for a place to live. It's not a work of art. It served the people and the purpose well at the time. But I think the time has come. Like this structure is deteriorating. It's just not where I think any of us would want to live in. There may be history to the place, but I don't think that history necessarily is attached to the house. History is history, and it still can be attached to that farm. And then from what we heard from the last speaker, that maybe the Lynes family, if I have that right, where they come from, or it could be a part of their family. But I also grew up somewhere else, and our family goes somewhere. But that shouldn't restrict what happens to that house and where those people want to live in. We are 6 people, and we won't fit into that old, deteriorating house. We are prepared to spend upwards of $1 million on this farm to build a new house and fix up the outbuildings and such like. But if this is the process of doing business in Center Wellington, we might just pull out and leave and spend our money somewhere else. We are frustrated with this process and how long it has taken. We need to move on. More than that, I don't have a lot to say. Any questions? I'd entertain questions. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for that, Glenn. And so are there any questions for Glenn from the committee? Okay, in that case, I don't see any. We are going to move now to a general discussion then of the actual process that's involved in looking at the research that we have, and we'll hear from Mariana. And just before we do, I'd just like to thank you, Glenn and Kate, both for being here in attendance this evening. And we're going to continue our deliberations on this matter and hopefully bring it to a conclusion as far as Heritage Center Wellington is concerned anyway. So Yeah. Okay, so Mariana, did you want to talk to us a little bit about the process then? In terms of the research and where it's leading us on this
Yes,
property?
sure. Thank you. And sorry, my internet connection was unstable, so hopefully you can hear me.
Yep.
Yeah, okay, good for now. That's why I had my camera off, because I had to move. But so the committee had was not comfortable with recommending demolition at the last meeting without doing any research on the property to determine at least its history. So I had commissioned, at the request of the committee, from the Wellington County Museum and Archives, from the archivist there, to conduct the research required. There had already been research done previously, as indicated by Kate Rowley, and their project linked to the Blacksmith shop from the James Lynes. So that was provided as well. And I had distributed that to the committee members in the subcommittee. So the committee has the information regarding the history of the property. And as you're aware, the committee is tasked with making a recommendation to council if it wishes, based on heritage value, before it goes to council, which is scheduled tentatively for the next council meeting. The chief building official would typically take a report since the demolition was requested. At this point, if there is any kind of recommendation from the Heritage Committee, then that would go forward to council as well. And council would make the decision based on the information that's presented to it from the owner as well. So the owner could bring forward any information regarding the condition of the property or the costs to restore it or the plans related to their future. So that's the brief description of the information that was received, and I will pass it back on to the committee and can answer any questions.
Are there any questions then for Mariana, just on the process and essentially where our next steps are? Okay, no questions. And perhaps Aaron, you could lead as the chair of the designation subcommittee. You could lead us in a bit of a discussion about the actual research that's been done and some of the findings by ASI who did the research.
Sure. And I think it's my turn for a unstable internet connection. So please let me know or wave at me if you can't hear me or if the conversation becomes too choppy. So based on the research provided from the museum and with further input from the heritage consultant, the heritage subcommittee, the heritage designation subcommittee reviewed the information and applied that to the Ontario Heritage Act criteria, the 906 criteria associated with designation of heritage properties. Devlin, would it be possible to bring up the table that we prepared, please? So from that, we found that from the 906 evaluation, we found that the property does have design value or physical value because it's a representative or early example of a style, type, expression, or material or construction method. And specific to the property, we found that it's a representative example of a 1.5-story Ontario cottage or Gothic revival style cottage building with an estimated construction date between 1870 and 1900. The building includes features which are indicative of this cottage style, including a high center window and Gothic gable above the entrance door. We also for associative value because it ties with themes of agriculture on the farm that was passed down through 3 generations of the Lynes family. And there's associative ties with James Lyne, who established the Blacksmith shop in Kenilworth. There's also associated value with John Lynes II, who took over the family farm and was a popular member of the community. He was an assessor of the township in 1890. And was a school trustee for 3 years. The information allotted to understanding of the community culture. So that's also tying into the idea of the blacksmith shop located at Highway 6 and kind of the broader themes that the site ties to agricultural and industry within a larger context of Wellington County.
Okay, thanks, Erin. You were frozen there for a few
Oh, no.
seconds, but
Okay,
but
well,
I think
the
we've got,
at least there's a
Yeah.
visual aid.
yeah, we've got the
I'm
visual
just
aid here, so if everyone's
providing an
okay,
overview.
yeah, we can just carry
And
on.
then, sure, and Devlin, if you don't mind switching the page to the next page. So we also found that the property has contextual value because it supports the themes of the character of the agricultural landscape and contributes to the agricultural narrative of the township and the broader context of Wellington County. Through our research and input from the consultant, we've also identified some preliminary heritage attributes. These are still kind of being finessed a little bit more. And, you know, depending on our conversations today, they can be refined further. Right now, they're just high level attributes. Devlin, I'm not sure if you can. Thank you. So the heritage attributes we've defined to date include the residential building, including its 1.5-story massing, the 3-bay symmetrical front facade, the fenestration of the windows and door, including the transom light above the primary entrance, the general footprint of the front portion of the structure, the brick exterior, the side-facing gable with the central dormer and arched window, and the siting of the building on the terrace land and orientation to second line. Other attributes include the lot boundaries that conform to the original 100-acre parcel acquired by the Lynes family in 1854, the spatial arrangement of the residential building in relation to the entrance drive as the primary structure, with ancillary or agricultural buildings located to the rear, and its proximity to the tributary of Irvine Creek and wood lot located to the southwest corner of the property. So from there, and based on kind of the evaluation against the criteria, the Heritage Designation Subcommittee would like to bring the recommendation to the Heritage Committee that we review the merit of designating the property as 6914 second line in West Garafraxa.
Okay, so just to be clear then, Erin, you're saying that the subcommittee wants to discuss the possibility of designation, or you're making actually a recommendation to designate?
We're making to the committee a recommendation to designate this property.
All right, okay. So with that in mind, are there any questions for Erin or in general, I suppose, at this point, concerning the information from ASI and as it pertains to our question this evening, which would be essentially that we would either continue to oppose the demolition of this house at 6914 second line by recommending to council that the intention to designate the property. So any comments then on that? Go ahead, Don.
I do know I've read a lot of what Glenn, and thank you, Glenn, for coming tonight. I hope you can hear me okay. And I really sort of dug through all the things that you said, and certainly the condition of the home is a concern for myself. It sounds like there's a lot of work to be done to keep the building intact almost from what you've reported to us. Is there anything more that you could help us with, Glenn, in that, in terms of trying to get an idea of the condition that the home is in? Maybe be able to sort of rehash that out with us if possible?
Okay, so that's a question for Glenn.
Yeah, just
I don't
because of
know.
the,
I mean, I see the, he's still, I'm not sure if he's still here.
yeah, I'm not
Yeah,
sure
I'm
either.
here.
Okay,
Are you? Okay, so there you have.
Yeah, and I was thinking of asking the question earlier, but now that we have both the heritage components on the screen there that we just looked at, and I know, Glenn, you've given us some pretty good details about the condition of the home, and it's always good that we kind of work together with both the property owners and ourselves when we talk about designation. So I wondered if you can give us a little bit of a summary of that in terms of the conditions of the home, because I know that there's some challenges that are there.
Yeah, am I on?
Yeah.
Yes, sorry, go ahead,
Yeah.
Glenn. Yep.
Yeah, no, and I want to respect and appreciate the history of the farm and all that. But I guess if it gets down to it, and you do designate this property as a heritage house, there is no way we're spending a penny on restoration of this.
And
house.
Glenn, can I just interrupt you for a second?
Yep.
I just wanted to point out that the Heritage Committee, in that we only deal with the heritage attributes, we don't have the power to designate the home or the house. The only power we have is to take it to council, to the municipal council, and suggest or recommend to them that they designate the property. But many of the arguments you're making to us, you would also make to the council. And they're the ones who consider all the factors. So just remember, like, we're not actually the ones who would actually do the designation. So
Okay.
I just wanted to make, I know it may sound like we're splitting hairs, but it's a significant difference.
We're just trying to help you in the process. So if you can give us some details about the condition of the home, that would really help in our decision, hopefully, Glenn.
Well, yeah, okay. I think I've pretty much explained all that in my emails, but I think there's renter people in there now, and they've had dogs in it, and they've just, like, this place stinks. And there's no insulation in the walls. The wiring, the plumbing is bad. The wiring is old and frayed. Those kind of things. The heating, well, there was an old furnace in there, but it hasn't been used for years. Right now it's being heated by an old wood stove. We can't get insurance on this place heated by wood. We all know that. There's no septic. That would all have to be done. Like I said earlier, there's like really no bathroom, and there's one toilet underneath a stairwell where you back in and you walk out. And there's just a lot of things. Like, this house is, where would you start? Like, it's just, it's beyond the money that we would just never put any money into restoring this thing.
Can you give us any information? Glenn, can you give us any information on what the foundation is? Is it like a rubble stone or some form of rubble stone?
Yeah, old rubble stone, crumbling. The basement is like really low. There's some concrete, but just like a packed, crumbling concrete. No, it's just not something I don't think anybody listening in here tonight will want to live in.
Sherry. Sherry has a question. Is this a question for Glenn?
Yes.
Okay. So one more question for you here, Glenn.
Sure.
When you purchased this building?
2000, very end of 2012 is when we bought this farm, and from Fred and Ivy Marshall, which they were living in it, which is fine. But Fred was the kind of guy, he wouldn't spend a penny. So there was this house has never been updated or any upgrades done to it to keep it livable or modern. And so we knew at that point we would never live in it. And a guy came along and he wanted to rent it. So it's okay, if you want to live in it, you live in it. But this is the end, that this house, if we ever move on it, will come down.
So I'm not sure why over the years it wasn't maintained. If you were the owner and you had renters, were you not sort of overseeing some of this that was going on in the building?
Well, the ones that are in last, we have not yet been into the house because I would have the right to once a year inspect it, but they're the kind of people, she really didn't let me in the house unless it would have forced my way in. On the other hand, we didn't really care because we knew at that point already the house was shot. So if they wanted to live in it and use it like that, we really didn't care. To us, the house was only going one way.
Well, I think it's kind of unfortunate that it got to that state. I can't speak for what it was like in 2012 when you purchased it, but I think over the 8 years or 9 years, it's kind of sad that it got to that point, that it deteriorated that much when it was probably not in the state that it is now. I can't speak on that, but surely if people are destroying a home, you would hope that the homeowner would have some say in that.
Well, yes, you would, and maybe we should have. I'm not saying they're destroying it, but no repairs have been done, and that didn't upgrade. Like I said about like the washroom, the bathroom, the septic, all those things. That's the way we bought it.
Yeah.
And
Okay,
at that point already, we decided we're not putting any money into it. But if people wanted to live in it the way it was, so be it.
Okay.
Aaron?
Just for clarity, has a structural assessment by an engineer or anything been done at all to date?
Glenn?
No.
So there's no other assessment. Was there anything, have you had a contractor look at it? I imagine not.
Well, not in depth, but anybody that drives in the lane, it's like you're not living in that thing. That's quite clear.
Yeah. I guess what we're looking at is, again, from the heritage point of view, we look at to see if a structure is gone in terms of its structural integrity, if it's gone beyond, sort of a reasonable sense of integrity, so that there's no way it could be brought back. For instance, if the foundation were infested or showing signs of, severe dry rot or infestations of carpenter ants and so on, certainly crumbling foundations is not a good, does not bode well. And another example might be, where there's also been mold discovered in the building. Just wondering if you're aware of any of those things.
Oh, there's definitely mold. There was a piece added on that Fred had built on, I don't know when. It's just kind of a lean-to against the original house. And if you go down into that basement, yes, there is mold on the walls. You can smell it. It's there because there's no dehumidifier there, and the heating system, like there has this one wood stove downstairs in the one room, but there's no ductwork to disperse that heat throughout the house. So there's no air movement more than the wind blowing through the cracks.
Thank you. Any additional questions then for Glenn? If not, we should have the discussion then amongst ourselves if we've got enough information here. Then is there then the feeling of the committee would be to designate or to oppose demolition? Is there a sense of that one way or the other then, from perhaps from those we haven't heard from? Kirk and Nanette?
This is the first, in my limited time on this committee, this is the first of these occasions that I have been part of, so I'm not sure of the rules, number one, or the process, number two, but can we ask that an engineer's report be prepared for this property? I've seen stuff coming to council a lot. I've never seen them at the Heritage Committee before. And I see, an engineer's report coming back and saying it's beyond repair or not. And it's kind of, right now we're being asked to make a decision without third-party input, I guess, is really what I'm looking at here, and I don't like being in that position particularly.
Mariana, are you able to comment on that?
Sure, I can try. In the past, I would say most owners that come to council would provide a structural assessment if they're requesting demolition, and there's been discussion about its heritage value, and it's been found that there is heritage value. So oftentimes the owner will provide a structural assessment, at least when it goes to council, if not always to the Heritage Committee itself. Again, the Heritage Committee is tasked with looking at heritage value unless it's compromised, the integrity is compromised. Otherwise, it would still be basically limited to heritage value alone. Council can consider anything else, as I said previously, cost, structural integrity, etc. So the owner could technically provide that report to council if the committee requests that. My screen looks frozen, so I'm not sure if you can hear me.
Yep, you're still going. You're good. You're good.
Okay. Okay. Okay, good, thanks. So the short answer is the owner can provide that information to council. Council can request it before it makes a decision, because council ultimately makes the decision either on the demolition or the designation. So if council requests that information, that could be discussed at council, or it could be noted today that the committee feels that information is needed or would be helpful when the owner goes to council, and that could be requested, I suppose, if the owner is willing to do that.
Okay. Follow up, Kirk, go ahead.
Thank you. You mentioned about the heritage being compromised, Marianne, and we don't really know that, do we? Particularly without some kind of a building assessment. So we don't know how badly the heritage is actually compromised as far as the condition of the building is concerned, with a third-party assessment.
Right. So basically what it means, generally speaking, is that if it is thought that there is sufficient work that needs to be done in order to stabilize the building from further deterioration and to restore it to any form of what would be required, let's say under the Building Code Act, to stabilize the building, if it's considered to require anything further that would, let's say, somehow obscure the heritage elements or obscure its value, then that would be considered from a heritage perspective. However, if a lot of the value is in its history and its association, then it might not be as critical. So something to note, again, is that if the property were designated, it could be an interim measure, and that could always be repealed upon further information being received. So the owner also has the ability to appeal that if council states its intention to designate. So designation could sometimes be used as an interim measure until further information is received, and then at least it's protected in the interim. And then if council decides, or if there's further information that shows some kind of structural analysis, and council decides not to designate, then that could happen, and the notice can be withdrawn, I believe. I'd have to look into the legalities, or if it is actually designated, then the designation can be repealed with further information.
Okay, does that help at all, Kirk?
It does, but I mean, once again, I'm looking at this from a slightly different perspective, in that I've never been on this side of the discussion before. When it comes to council, from my own personal perspective, and I think for most of council, we rely heavily on the recommendation from the Heritage Committee for this kind of thing. And if the Heritage Committee is making a recommendation without having complete information, then, I worry about whether we're making, we're getting all the information we need to make the right decision. So I guess ultimately it's going to come to council, and I look at what we have here right now, and I wouldn't feel comfortable making this final decision at council without the Heritage Committee recommendation. Does that answer your question, Philip?
Yeah, I think I get your point. I think the other folks probably do as well. It's hard for us to make a recommendation without having all the information. We have some of the information now. But about this one critical component in terms of the actual third-party condition of the house, of being that a third-party condition, third-party opinion of the state of the house, it's hard for us to make that recommendation, although we do primarily make our recommendations based on the heritage value. So I think we could still make a decision, and then council could ask for that third-party information, and so as council always does, look at the entire holistic question of the value of the heritage plus the value of the homeowner's right to demolish the house and build another house. So that's something that council normally would address, would they not?
Let Kirk go first.
Yeah, we would. I mean, that's exactly what we address, Phil. But as I say, my concern is that we rely fairly heavily on the recommendation from the Heritage Committee. So
Yeah.
It's kind of having that complete information package is really what I'm worried about.
Well, we can recommend, or we can advise on the heritage value, but it certainly, I think council's still going to be on the hook for making the final decision in terms of, because you're able to look at a lot of other factors. So anyway, I don't want to monopolize the time here. Nico, did you, or Nanette? I'm sorry. If you did, I see Don, sorry. I'll go to Don and then.
I was wondering if it was possible to help all sides here in making a motion to designate and then to help council to make the final decision and allow Glenn time to be able to get an engineering report to argue his case also. Does that make sense to anyone?
I just want to say something too, because I think
Okay.
we're on a time.
How about if let's deal with Don's question first. Perhaps Mariana, you could, I hate to put you on the spot here, but how would that, I think we still have to oppose demolition through recommendation of designation. That's what you're saying. But you would obviously want to have that third-party opinion. So how would that work, Mariana?
Well, the owner is here today, so he could probably speak to whether he's willing to get a structural assessment done. I guess that's the first question. The committee can make a recommendation with or without that assessment. It will make it, I guess, the discussion would be had more at council, and then council could decide whether the owner is willing or not willing to provide that structural assessment, whether council still wants to go ahead with that decision. So really, I guess the question is for the owner, whether that can be done, and whether a site visit or some other form of assessment to the property could be done in preparation for either a decision of this committee, which would make it, I guess, deferred to the next meeting, or if the committee is satisfied to make a recommendation to move forward, whether that information, additional information, can come to council for the meeting on the 20th. So they're really, I guess, questions for the owner.
Okay, so Glenn, are you still here?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Okay, thank you for sticking with us. So our question is, would you be willing to obtain a third-party report on the integrity, the structural integrity of the property, of the house? And or allow a site visit by the committee to view the house?
Well, I would probably get an engineer in to value the house because I'm thinking it would go in my favor and this house would get condemned. As far as having you guys on the property, we can't get together meeting because of COVID and all this stuff. How would we have all you guys on my property? The other thing, we've been fighting this since 3 or 4 months now, and you keep talking here, maybe you have to put it off for another month. Please, why? Like, you were supposed to deal with this in November, and you didn't get it done. Now we're December, and you're hardly getting it done. How long do you think we're going to wait on this?
Well, and I think that's the question is and we'll have that discussion then exactly. But if you're willing to get a report, then that report could be viewed by council as well if we go forward tonight. I think that's.
Well, especially if your recommendation is to designate the property, I'm getting an engineer to fight that.
Right. Okay. Well, we just wanted to know what so at this point you are willing to do that, to bring that information forward either to us or to council.
Yeah. If that's what I have to do to get this demolition, then this house will be, an engineer will look at it and he will condemn it. Yeah. And the council will deal with that if you guys can't come up with a decision here.
Yeah. Okay. So there's the answer on that. So I think we have enough information then at this point. Do we want to go ahead and entertain then the motion is there some additional input you'd like to make before we do that? So Aaron, I'm not sure, did you want to make a motion then in terms of opposing the demolition?
Sure.
Which the committee can then do a final discussion and vote on?
Sure. So the motion would be that Heritage Center Wellington objects to the demolition of the house located at 6914 Second Line in West Garafraxa, and recommends council state its intention to designate the property.
Okay, and is there a seconder for that motion? Okay, Sherry, so you're seconding the motion. Any discussion then of the motion? Nico?
I'm sorry. At this point, given the discussion that we just had, that the owner is prepared to obtain a structural assessment, is there a pending clause that should be included in that motion? Because if we decide to designate now, given the owner's willingness to obtain a structural assessment, are we cutting that process off at the knees, basically? So that would be my only submission would be, given the property owners that willingness to obtain the assessment, I think that a pending clause might be appropriate at this point.
I think if I can speak to that maybe, and Mariana, you jump in if I'm going off book here. I think if we're working with the owner in a strange way here, we have a question before us about do we oppose the demolition on the basis of the heritage value of the property, and therefore we recommend designation. So if that's the question, and we know he's willing to bring a report forward, and he's also being this process is starting to become somewhat bureaucratic in that it's delayed. Now it would be delayed into a third month, if we request that report for ourselves, the report will go to council. So I'm just saying the report will get seen and read and be entered into the discussion. I'm just wondering if we're being a little too bureaucratic in terms of asking for that report to be seen by us at this point, based on the comments of the owner. Does that make sense, or Marianne?
Yeah, I was just going to add, that's the way it's unfolded in a couple of other instances where the committee recommended designation based on heritage value and the information that was received and reviewed. And then the owners brought to council structural assessment reports that basically confirmed the difficulty in restoration, the costs, etc., whatever information they felt was pertinent. Council was provided that information at the meeting, and then council made the decision. So that's what's happened in a couple of other instances already. It didn't actually go back to the Heritage Committee another time with the structural report itself.
Go ahead, Nico. Yep.
I'm satisfied with that as long as it has a format for consideration. I'm satisfied with the motion as is.
Okay. All right. So is there any other discussion on the motion? Devlin, could you perhaps read the motion then one more time, or I can?
I can read it for you, Phil. That Heritage Center Wellington objects to the demolition of the house located at 6914 Second Line, West Garafraxa, and recommends council state its intention to designate the property.
Okay, all in favor? Okay. Unopposed? Okay, so that's unanimous, I believe. In favor of the motion is approved. So I think I just wanted to make sure that Mariana, perhaps you can let Glenn know then what the timeline would be so that he can then obtain the documentation he'll need to go to council. Perhaps that's something you can discuss tomorrow.
Sure.
Is that okay with you, Glenn? Is Glenn still there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, so Glenn, so I mean, we are going to send our recommendation to council to designate the property. And then you'll have the opportunity so that in effect, the next council meeting, I believe, is in a few weeks. You'll have the opportunity to then
that would be December 20th.
December 20th. So that'll be your opportunity then to take that information to council. And I would suggest you have a discussion with Mariana about how that process will work.
Yeah, okay, sure.
To help move it forward for you.
All righty.
Okay, thank you for your input and for participating this evening.
Well, thank you guys for wasting my time.
Okay, fair enough. And I don't know if Kate's still here. Kate? Kate, thank you for we've done what we can, and I guess it'll go on to council now.
Yes, good luck for the next stages to all of you.
Yeah, thank you, and good luck with your project. I look forward to visiting the museum sometime.
Thanks for your support.
Thank you. Bye. Okay, so the next is 5.2, partial demolition of a listed property on 127 Princess Street in Elora. And we have another delegation of the owner, I believe. Hi. So it's, maybe you can help me with how you pronounce your name. My name's Phil Brown.
Hi, I'm Tierney Anderson.
Okay, hi, Tierney. So welcome to the meeting. We are perhaps start with just hearing from you what your plans are and your request for this demolition of the listed property.
Sure. So we just moved to Elora. I'm pretty excited to be here. So we're in this over 100-year-old house, and we want to make some improvements to it. Not much has happened to it, I'd say, in the past 30 to 50 years. The owners that had it before us didn't do much with it. So behind me, there is a 3-season addition that is a porch. It's not winterized. It's in pretty rough shape. So we'd like to take that off. And we have a porch at the front, which is also not part of the original house. It's a porch that was added. And it is in really rough shape. It's listing. So we'd like to remove both of them. We are working with Rob Vanderwald on plans for improvements. So we're going to redo the kitchen and a couple other things, we hope. But we wanted to start first with the removal piece and then go from there.
Great. And I believe there's some information on that as well in the agenda. Can you, sorry, what was it that you're planning to do in terms of, did you describe what you're planning on doing in terms of replacing once you've demolished that?
Yeah, so we're hoping to build some sort of structure, probably in the same footprint is what we're thinking. Rob is actually working on the plan right now, so we don't have the full plan. He's going to put a proposal back to us based on the information we've given him about what we'd like. So we would like to expand a little bit out this way and a bit along on our dining room. So, you know, things fully insulated, it would become part of the kitchen. But in line with what we've seen here in Elora, in terms of looking at some of the older red brick homes, I've seen, you know, board and batten additions on a lot of them. So we would sort of take your cues and be in line with whatever is expected. But we would like to expand a little bit and at least get rid of some of the stuff that is in bad shape. And we would rebuild a front porch as well, we think. Again, depending on cost and all these things, but again, in the character of what has been done around us on other red brick homes.
Thank you. Questions for Tierney from the committee? Aaron?
Do you know the approximate date or kind of era when that front porch specifically might have been added?
I don't. I looked at the map and it does specifically reference that it's a newer addition or that it wasn't original, but I don't know the date of it. It's in pretty rough shape. And the way it's been built, I don't know, I'm not smart about these things, I could guess, but it's not charming or old, if that makes sense. I'm pretty into charming and old things, and it's not.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Tierney? Okay, then I think the question then before the committee, as you know, we've done this before. The question is there any the only way we could oppose this demolition would be to express our intent to designate the property. And so I don't see any sort of, I don't have any sense that that's what the committee would like to do. So I think essentially the question would be that we do not object to the demolition of this front porch and rear addition at the listed property 127 Princess Street in Elora, and that the property remain on the municipal register. So that is the question. And would someone then like to move that as a motion? Dawn, any seconders of that? Aaron, any questions to the motion? Okay, in that case, Devlin, could you just read that for us then?
That Heritage Center Wellington does not object to the partial demolition, front porch and rear addition at listed property 127 Princess Street, Elora, and that the property remain on the Municipal Heritage Register.
All in favor? Opposed? Yeah, that motion's carried. Thank you very much, Tierney. And you can, sounds like you can move on with your project once. I think the next step will be for Mariana to, that doesn't have to go to council. It doesn't
Yes.
go to council? Yeah.
Yes, it does. So
Yeah.
I'll be doing a staff report to council for the December 20th meeting, and I'll let you know what the decision is, and then you can apply for your building permit after that.
Great. Thank you so much to everybody. Thanks for your
Thank
time.
you.
Yeah.
Night. So that takes us to item 6.1. We have a final citizen request, final report to designate at 19 and 19 Alpha East Mill Street from Ian Rankine. And I believe that's something that you were going to comment on then, or update us on in terms of our site visit to that property, Aaron? Or was it Mariana?
Yeah, I can do it maybe in the
Oh, I'm sorry, you're right.
subcommittee
Yeah, but
section.
yeah, so you'll comment on that, yeah, as part of the update from the subcommittee, and that information's also gone to the subcommittee from Ian Rankine. And Devlin, I guess you've acknowledged receipt of that to Ian as well. Thank you. So 350 St. Andrews Street, Fergus, is tomorrow, I believe, is a virtual community information meeting. I think you have to request a link through their through the information that Marianne forwarded to us, and I think some of us are attending that meeting tomorrow. Nico, is this when you would like to comment or make a statement on that property, on the development itself? Just on mute.
It is more pertaining to that and the adjoining site as it impacts on the development process. So I'm not looking for discussion. Some might feel that this is somewhat obscure, but I think it needs to be put on the radar of this committee and of the community in general. And it has to do with the fact that I've walked past that site several times, and I noticed that adjoining that site is a relatively intact footprint of the old town hall. I believe it was demolished to grade, and I believe that there is a substantial amount of that building left in situ. And so I guess my question is, at this point, whether it is appropriate to look at some archaeological field work, and that it be that field work be undertaken in accordance with the Ontario Heritage Act. And the reason I'm saying that is because we have absolutely no idea as to the heritage integrity of what is left on that site. And if it is determined that it is of significant enough heritage integrity to satisfy section 2.6.1 of the provincial policy statement, then I would suggest that that would need to be taken into full consideration. But there's no way of actually knowing that without the archaeological field work required to assess the integrity of what is left on the site. And if it is in fact determined that it has sufficient historical integrity, then I would suggest that any heritage impact assessment with regard to the current development would need to take that into consideration. So I guess I'm posing this as an issue for this committee's consideration. And if as I say, it's so obscure, and probably a majority of individuals don't realize just what is left of that site. So I just wanted to make sure that I brought this into the purview of this committee, so that it can be considered, and certainly invite any discussion on the issue at the next Heritage meeting. But I did just simply want to address the issue and put it on the radar of this committee.
Okay, thank you, Nico. I think what we could do is work on, and perhaps you could work with Mariana on a way that could be, or Devlin, that could become an agenda item at some point.
That would be great. Thank you.
Okay. That brings us then to notice of the completion of the bridge study for the bridge that we 16WG that was the committee recently dealt with. So that's the information items for you this evening, and that brings us then to reports by the there's the Healthy Growth Advisory Committee update 6.4, which is part of those info. Sorry, go ahead, Devlin. Did you have a
Committee
comment?
didn't meet this month, so that was an oversight on my part. We could have taken that off.
All right, so we won't worry about that then, and we can move to item 7.1, Public Relations Education Subcommittee. I was going to ask Christine to comment on that, but I'm not sure with her not being here tonight. She apparently has a conflict with another meeting, I think. So unless, Mariana, you wanted to say something on that, we can just move on to the designated property subcommittee.
I could briefly comment, and Nanette can jump in if she'd like as well.
I'm
So
sorry.
we have met a few times over the past month, working hard on the Heritage Awards. We put an ad in the newspaper, in the Wellington Advertiser last week. It was the 27th or so, regarding nominations for Heritage Awards. We did receive a few more nominations, so that was good. And so we'll be working on going through those and trying to fill some of those awards. And then we'll put it out to the public as well for anybody watching, that's going to be, that event will be held, might be live streamed or on Zoom, but it will be held in February for Heritage Week. So thank you to everyone who nominated, and we'll be working through those with the committee. So stay tuned for some of that further work and information coming forward. I think that was it, Nanette, unless there was something else we had to add to that.
No, I think you covered it all. The only other thing is we're just trying to identify strategies on how to educate the public about what the Heritage Committee actually does, like the work that the subcommittees do, and what we do out in the community as well. Because I don't know if our reputation is up there yet. So we're working on that.
Yeah, and we tried to include a little bit of that in the ad that went out last week for the Heritage Awards, and a brief description of the Heritage Committee and its work. But we are working on that aspect as well. Thanks, Nanette.
Great. Thanks for the update, and we'll look forward to seeing what's been put forward for the Heritage Awards. That brings us to the Designated Property Subcommittee. Erin?
Yes, thank you. So I think sort of our main focus this past month has been reviewing the research and preparing the evaluation for 6914 second line, which we've already had on the agenda, but also as an update, and to kind of address the information items. So we're in receipt of the additional information and the request to designate for 1919A East Mill in Elora. And also to note that the designation subcommittee was able to go out and conduct a site visit of the property last week. So we were able to review both the interiors and exteriors of the property. So that will help furnish some of our research and information gathering for that property. But I think those are our primary updates at this point.
Great. Thank you. And thanks to those who were able to attend the site visit for the property. It was very interesting and informative. And I'm sure it'll help in our future discussions on that property as it goes forward. The Municipal Register Subcommittee, I'm just going to fill you in on what we were able to actually get together for a meeting in person to review. I'm not sure how many properties we got through, but probably 30 or 40 properties, I'm guessing, that we were able to make decisions on to put onto our list of properties that we will eventually put forward to add to the listed properties. So that's starting to move forward again. And I think we're going to try and meet again probably in January then to keep that moving. And then the Bridge Subcommittee, Don, do you want to comment on that?
Yeah, I certainly can. We actually met twice since our last meeting. So, and thanks to Mariana for taking us through all the stages of it. We've gone so far as to create a draft term of reference for this new committee. So we've got that. We're going to be working on a work plan for the new year in January. And a major part of that is to create an inventory of all heritage bridges in Center Wellington. Also making connections to ones that are up for rehabilitation or demolition or whatever it might be in the next 10 years, in the next 10-year budget. So we'll have a long-term forecast of bridges that will be coming to us in the next few years. And we are also going to be taking photographs of these bridges. And we're hoping to then put it into the registry that we already have, the municipal registry, as another component within that GIS system.
Great idea. Yeah.
Yeah. So much more to come. We're in the very early stages at this point.
Okay. Great work. Thank you. Thank you for that update. And thank you to Aaron and to Nanette also for their work on the subcommittees. So that brings us, I guess, that completes the agenda items. So we're well ahead of time. I was just going to say this will be our last meeting then for 2021, quite a year. I'm not going to make any predictions about 2022. But thank you to Mariana, to Lisa, and to Devlin for your assistance. You've been invaluable, Mariana, for your assistance and everything you do and the work you put in. Comprehensive, consistent, and very high quality support to this committee week in and week out, month after month. So we really appreciate your efforts, and to Lisa and to Devlin, as well as supporting in the function of your legislative coordinator and deputy clerk. We appreciate that work you did. And so with that, I guess, wish everybody a Merry Christmas and Happy New Year, and we'll see you in January. I suspect at our next meeting. So, and with that, I'm going to declare the meeting adjourned. Good night, everybody.
Thank you.
Right.